Be quiet. Anyway, I know it's echoey in here. I'll try to fix it a little bit in editing, but it's just, you know, it's just echoey in here. This is my son's room. Anyway, so obviously this bottom line right here represents the top edge of the footer. These blocks are the concrete blocks. Now this is to scale. I use this yardstick at a scale of 1 centimeter equals an inch. So these are to scale. The measurements and everything are right. They are to scale also. So now that you see this over here, I'm going to step to this side, because right here is what we're working on. I'm hoping the glare is not too bad right there. I don't know. Let me check and make sure you guys can see that. Yeah, I think you can. Okay. So, what we have here is about 2.5 inches too tall. Okay. It needs to be down here even with the blocks. Up here we've got about 3 inches too tall. So I'm going to go ahead and take this blue chalk and I'm going to put a little line showing where the level should be. Okay, so that's where that one should be. And that's where that one should be. Okay? Now this top edge here is actually the footer running, you know, the length of the house. So it basically, you know, this is permanent and this down here is permanent. The only thing to change is right in here, this one step. What I'm thinking is that the whole thing is out of whack. The whole thing is wrong. I got to thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, and no matter what I do down here, okay, if I change the height here, then the height up here on this long piece is going to be wrong, which would make the whole thing wrong. See, if this right here is level. You know, it's too tall here in different amounts. You know, it's like 3 inches here and 2.5 inches here, and it's level, almost perfectly level. So if I take away from here, you know, if I were to grind out, you know, a little bit of it like something like that, you know, and then add some up here, kind of like that, that's going to be way off level. And there's no way to cut the blocks to make this scenario work, because the blocks would have to be this much taller than what they are. You know what I'm saying? If I were to cut this down, okay, the block up here, the very first block might be okay. But then once we get over here, let me just go ahead and show that. Okay, so that's what our row of blocks would look like. Okay? So if I were to, let's say, okay, because see, the end of the block would be, no, because I could cut the bottom. Let me just go ahead and draw in some blocks here, just to, okay, and what we need, okay, we would need that level all the way across. Okay, so that works out right, okay? So this top footer here is the correct plane as this down here. This step down here, hopefully you can see that, the step down here is 3 courses to level with right here. Let me just go ahead and maybe draw that in real vulgarly. Well, either way, that's level with that. Let me get rid of this. This is getting confusing. Okay, so we're 3 courses down here to level up here. Okay, and that would be way off level. We would need, I could probably make that work, but it would be a lot of block cutting. Because to cut these to where they would sit flat, okay, so there's like 13 inches between there and there. But if we were going down here, 16 inches, okay, so that would be 2 exact courses. Now let's see how to do this. I guess probably let's try coming down 8 inches, down 8 inches over here. Okay, so for this second row of blocks to be level, I would have to cut the blocks like that. But then again, it's still, you know, this end block this end block is still going to sit jagged, like crooked, like it'll be sitting like this. Even though the top is cut flush, the edge of the block is still crooked. I guess I can cut it like that. Well, that might work. Let's just see something real quick. Because I think I'm making this harder than what it has to be, and I often do that. Okay, I want to ask you guys your opinion. Just how difficult do you think it would be to cut a block to fit this little crap up right here? You know what I'm saying? I could go ahead and pour some concrete in here, you know, to a certain point, and then just cut the top level of the blocks where they need to be. That's going to take some heavy-duty measuring and some geometry, which is not my strongest suit, but because I don't want to lay the blocks in and then go through and snap a level line, which would be the easiest way to do it, and then cut the blocks after they're already mortared in. Because there's not enough room down in the trench, really, to get in there. So I'd have to pre-cut the blocks and then lay them in. But I'm wondering if I can get away with not cutting any of this stuff out. You know, because normally I would have to cut, you know, like that, cut that off. But I'm wondering if I can just cut a block around that, you know, to where the block is like a Tetris shape, kind of. Bet I probably could. And then this, what I'll have to do is I'll have to take some pieces of rebar and I'll have to stack me up some blocks back here and put 3/8 rebar in between the blocks to represent the mortar joint. And then I'll have to run me a string line from level of these blocks across to the edge of the footer here. That way I can measure down and know where exactly, to put my concrete. Because these blocks will have to, let's see, or I guess what I could do is go ahead and cut a block like this and then lay in the rest of these blocks. I know I'm getting, not to scale now, but well, actually, let's do stay in scale, because that's going to make it easier to determine if it'll work or not. Okay, so now I've kind of built this up to 3 courses high down here to scale, and then this line right here is level to this top edge of the footer that goes the length. So let's see. So this should be about the same measurement. It's pretty close. Okay. So I guess, well, why don't you all tell me why I can't do this? What if let me go ahead and measure so it's to scale. Why couldn't I cut a block like that, right? And then cut all of these blocks. Let me stay in scale here. I keep wanting to just make marks. Okay, so if I cut this block to fit that, and then cut these blocks at the right height, because this is level, okay, then my next course of blocks would be right, would they not? And that's in a level plane with the rest of this, so that will not affect all the blocks behind. I don't have to take away material, I don't have to add material. I think this might work. The only tricky thing will be cutting this block right here. I'm not worried about taking strength away from the block, because when it's all mortared together, it's more like a unit, Not only, it doesn't necessarily just push right here in this corner or whatever, which seems to me like it would be the weak point. The weak point in this block seems to me like it would be kind of diagonal right in there. But not only does this push down, it pushes out in every direction. The corner of this block pushes against the corner of that block and over there, and it all kind of works together. And the way mortar is made or intended is the mortar is weaker than the concrete block. So if anything cracks, it's going to be the mortar joint before the block, which doesn't really affect it structurally. And all this will be underground. You'll never see any of this stuff. The ground level, is like up here. You might see a couple. I bet the ground probably stops right about the middle right here. The ground level's probably something similar to that. So I think that might work. So I'll go ahead and stop here and let you guys mull that over and tell me whether or not that will work. So the main thing is going to be this block right here. Cut to that funky shape. Now I don't see why that couldn't work. That looks fine to me. I'm not taking away material, I'm not having to add anything. Since this is already level, I can just cut this block in a funky shape. Of course it's going to be kind of weird or whatever because of the or instead of doing that, what I could do is just pour concrete in there. Hey, that's an idea. Go ahead and lay this block, and this block, and then go ahead and lay, you know, all these blocks, and then just fill that void up with concrete and just level off the top. That's probably an even easier thing to do, rather than having to cut this whoop-de-doo out of that, and then the center block support is going to be like right in there, and I'm going to have to maybe cut into it and stuff like that. I could just fill that void with concrete and then go right over the top of it. I mean, ideally what I'd like to do is lay all these blocks back here up to this point, you know, 2 blocks high right here on this step, and then measure down 8 inches, and that would be in line with the top course of these 2 blocks, and fill this whole thing with concrete. But I mean, that would take bags and bags and bags of concrete, so probably the easier thing to do is cut these blocks. I'll run me a level line, a real tight string line that's level across here. Like I said, stack these blocks up with 3/8 rebar in between to get the right height. Make sure my line's good and level across there. And then I can measure from the line to the bottom so I know where 8 inches is. Because blocks are not a full 8 inches. They're like 7 5/8 or whatever, to allow for the 3/8 mortar joint. Blocks are only, you know, 7 5/8 by, you know, 15 5/8 or whatever. But they call them 8 by 16 because that's the finished, you know, height and width or whatever. But, or I don't know the exact measurements, but the 8 by 16 comes after the mortar. So I can just measure down 8 inches, and then that would give me that line, and then I know how tall to cut those blocks. And I might cut these blocks, you know, 1/4 of an inch smaller than what they need to be, and then just adjust my mortar joint to give me a little wiggle room. Okay, I think that's the plan. I think the plan is lay these blocks in, you know, 2 courses, you know, all the way back. And then, because I think I've already got 2 courses up to here at least. And then I'm pretty sure, okay, yeah, where I stopped yesterday was right here. Right there's where I stopped yesterday. So I've got a block up onto that step. So I'd have to put in this next row, which I started yesterday on that corner. So I'd have to put in this next row up here, and then finish out this row, which is 4 blocks, and then finish up to this block right here and stop. And then I would start here and come back, and then whatever this void is, just fill it with concrete and level off the top. I don't see why that wouldn't work. So I think that's the plan. So like I said, the whole rest of the foundation was right. But then, you know, the plane of this is off from the rest of it, you know, this much or whatever. So it's kind of a whoop-de-loo, like a screwed up deal, but, you know, these guys that did this were my age. I actually went to school with one of them, and they just had a little tiny, you know, 40 horsepower Kubota backhoe, and you know, for what they had, and they did use a Transit, but it was, you know, an older, it wasn't a laser one, it was just, you know, it just had a viewfinder, and they used a tape measure. But for the equipment they had, I'm pretty happy with what they did. But they ran out of concrete in here. They started to run out, and there wasn't enough to finish that off. So they were thinking, you know, that they would put it to where I could put a 4-inch flat block in to equal out the distance, but it didn't work out that way. They got their measurements a little bit off, and kind of messed it up. But I think this is going to be the easiest thing to do. Lay these blocks in, 2 courses, come over here and lay these in from that way to this way, then fill that void with concrete, and then we're back on a level plane with the rest of the foundation. So, yeah, I think that's the plan. So this is filled with concrete. Not that that represents filling with concrete, but okay, and then let's go over here and make sure. Okay, so there's the blocks going the length of the foundation. So then we should be back at a level plane. Like that. I think that'll work. I really don't see why it wouldn't. Okay, now I'm just doodling. Anyway, alright, so I think that'll work. One more time, lay these blocks in over here up to this point. You know, obviously we'll be laying from this side to that side. So get 2 courses right here, leave this part open, start back over here and lay blocks in to about in here somewhere, wherever the blocks lay, and then just fill that void with concrete. And that puts us back on a level plane. So I'm only going to have to cut 3 blocks or so, maybe 4. I don't really remember the distance that the steps are, so I just put like, I think I put 6 feet down here and like 4 feet up here or something. But that doesn't really matter. The length doesn't matter, it's the height on this problem. So I really don't see why that won't work. So if you guys see a problem with that, let me know. For sure, let me know if there's a problem with that. But I really don't see there being any issue with that at all. And that probably wouldn't even take very much concrete, because I've got some plywood out in the shed. I can put plywood on the sides. I could cut that notch out of plywood, no problem. Put some plywood on the sides of the blocks. Maybe even a little wider. But pretty much just fill this concrete in between. You know, it'd only be as much concrete as one concrete block, you know, so it wouldn't take very much concrete at all. Okay, well, I do want to say I really appreciate all of you chiming in and trying to help. You all had pretty close to the same suggestions, and I think this way is going to be the best way. I don't know if anybody suggested this exactly, but I used a lot of your suggestions on. You know, I had already thought about cutting the blocks, but I didn't know how it would work. You know, until I actually drew it on here. Once I drew it on here, I could figure it out. So I would only have to cut 3 or 4 blocks in this scenario. I really don't want to have to try to cut a block with like a Tetris shape. I don't know about that. I think it'd be easier just to dump some concrete in there, and I mean, the 3,000 psi concrete's stronger than the blocks anyway. So again, I just really want to thank you all, and I appreciate you guys chiming in and trying to help. That's why I started this channel. I started this channel so that everybody could help one another, and I basically look at a world where people help each other. Basically one of those communities where people live and everybody just shares in all the work, and you know, that's kind of the ideal system, I would think. There's no money, and if there is money, it's like a communal fund, you know, for buying like gasoline and tools and, you know, tractors and things like that, if need be, that sort of thing. Ideally, you know, that's what I would like to start. I obviously wouldn't be able to do that until we were, you know, old. Because my father-in-law would not want a bunch of people coming in and living, but just on the portion of land that my wife would most likely inherit, that would probably sustain, I would say, 20 families without stressing the land. That would still be an easy load for nature to handle, and you know, everybody just pitch in and do everything. You know, maybe one family's job is taking care of the pigs or the livestock altogether. One family's job might be to do the hay and or firewood. You know, do the hay in the summer and the firewood in the winter. And one family might take care of all the cooking. One family might take care of all the food preservation and canning and stuff like that, you know. I think a system like that would be not too bad. You know, everybody, you know, there's one big shop building or whatever, and, you know, all the tools and everything are there for everyone to use. You know, welders or, you know, wrenches or sockets or whatever. There's just, you know, one big, you know, shop building, and everybody can just come in there and work with what they need to work with. I think that would be super cool to live like that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but I'll go ahead and end this video. And again,